What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel here from the Geek Speak Nation channel, and it is time to finally talk about Watchmen. So, Watchmen's been a show that I've been watching since its premiere, and I have not talked about it, and after watching episode 8, I regret not making a video on every single episode and my thoughts on it, because the show's been absolutely incredible. So this will be a review of episode 8 to a certain degree, but it will also, I want to make brief mention before we get into episode 8 about my thoughts on the season thus far, because I think it's been really, really good. And so just to kick things off, I just want to say that, yeah, I was really skeptical about the idea of having any sort of sequel or any sort of continuation of the Watchmen franchise as compared to just in general another reinterpretation of retelling of the original graphic novel. So I was a little bit trepidatious going into this series, and I think this show does a lot of things very, very well, and I think does a lot of things pretty okay at the same time. I think episodes like this, like episode 8, episode 6 and 7 and 5 and all that stuff, I think it seems like more so the latter half. I think episodes that kind of focus more so on a singular character are my favorite ones in this show, because that's when the writing is at its best, that's when it's at its most unique, and they try out different ways of storytelling, they try out different avenues of exploring character development, which are always very, very interesting. It just feels like when you're watching episodes, like episodes 1 through 4, they feel very stagnant, and it feels very like it has to take a lot of time setting up not necessarily the world, but setting up a lot of the Easter eggs that are gonna get paid off later. And it's nice because we'll be able to go back and rewatch the show and see how those early episodes fit into the overall mystery, but it makes it a bit of a slog at times to get through the first 4 episodes. Not that the world isn't interesting, not that the performances are great and that the writing isn't good, it's just that that's kind of the nature of how things are set up when you're doing a mystery box style TV show. And real quick, I did want to talk about that. So Lindelof comes kind of from the J.J. Abrams school of mystery box storytelling, where you have a singular mystery that the entire premise of the TV show, I hit the microphone, the entire premise of the TV show or the film is all predicated on this singular box, the singular mystery, and unpacking all the things around it are just extra fluff in order to get to the center, the crux of what this mystery is actually all about, so that the filmmakers can surprise you and be like, oh, bet you didn't see that coming. In my personal opinion, this is probably one of my least favorite forms of storytelling, because to me it's just a way for writers and directors and all this sort of stuff to be able to try to go around and be like, oh, look how smart I am. Oh, I bet you didn't see that coming because I wrote such a convoluted mystery with a whole bunch of elements that didn't even matter in the first place. So you were confused the whole entire time until the very ending when I explained it all to you. Aren't you entertained? No, that is one of my least favorite ways of storytelling. It's just showboating in an extended format and a waste of time for a lot of people. Big example of that for me definitely has to be Westworld season 2. Westworld season 2, it's like they went out of their way to make the show even more convoluted, just so they'd be like,
ugh, Reddit can't guess this one. We've made it so stupid. We've made the plot so ridiculous that they'll never be able to guess it.
And it's like, okay, you fooled Reddit, but I want to enjoy a show that makes sense. Can we do that? I liked season 1. However, I think that Lindelof has, David Lindelof, the, showrunner for the show, creator, writer, all that jazz, has perfected that mystery box format. I think that he has created a mystery for the show that is, it has that setup that can be a bit of a slog and can be a bit of annoying when you feel like you're being strung on, you're being IV, drip fed information, which can be frustrating. But I think he does that in the most bearable way possible as compared to a lot of forms of mystery box storytelling, and then the payoff is absolutely fantastic. And the reason why it's great is because he's not subverting your expectations for the sake of subverting your expectations. Just look at a film like Star Wars The Last Jedi, or just look at a TV show season like Westworld Season 2. A lot of elements that are inside there are just there to subvert your expectations, just to be like, boom, you didn't see that coming. And I'm like, yes, because that was dumb and I didn't understand what the point of it was. Why'd you do that? What does that have to do with anything? A good twist, a good subversion of expectation always has something to say. A good example in this show is the subversion of who we thought Hooded Justice would be and who we thought Angela's grandfather was going to be in his past. I think that was absolutely fantastic. I think that subversion of expectation ended up servicing more so the themes of the story about identity and about who we are and how our past affects us and generational scars. I think in that regard, subversion of expectation actually benefited the story and made it stronger for it. That's why I'm all for it in this show and the way Lindelof is handling it. Now that we've circled around and gotten all the pieces together about how I feel about the show overall, let's talk about episode 8 because it is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. 3, 2, 1. So at the end of episode 7, we got the reveal that actually Cal is Dr. Manhattan, and he didn't even know. And that's because of a little circular chip that was placed inside of his brain. And I have to say that I absolutely love this interpretation of Dr. Manhattan. I truly think that they captured something that I didn't think was actually possible. And that was the way that Dr. Manhattan perceived time. And I think capturing it in the most effective way possible. You end up getting that in the film adaptation by Zack Snyder. You end up getting that iconic scene at the clock tower and all that jazz. But it doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same impact. Not as it does in this show. And the reason for that is because of they get time to explore how living life constantly in the present, no matter what point in time you're at, what effect that has on you as an individual and the people around you. You were able to get that in the graphic novel because of the unique format that we're in with a comic book, where panels have individual blots of story, individual bits of information. And the greatest thing about that is that when you're looking at a panel in a comic book, it could be any sort of passage of time that goes between each individual panel. And that's what Alan Moore masterfully used to his advantage when trying to encapsulate what it was like to be Dr. Manhattan. And he does it so masterfully in the way that he does. And then when you come over to television, and part of the reason why people always say, you know, Watchmen is unfilmable, Watchmen is unfilmable, it's not that you can't do a direct one-for-one adaptation of generally of everything that happens in Watchmen. You know, look at, you know, Zack Snyder's interpretation. It's not that you can't do everything almost one for one. The real issue comes with, are you going to get the same impact? You know, are you going to get the same effect? And I think that watching this episode, I truly got that same effect of when I was reading the graphic novel for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is what he's here now. But he's also in the intrinsic field becoming Dr. Manhattan. What? Like that same feeling of, whoa. I had that same feeling. Man. And the reason they were able to pull this off is because they got to spend time doing it. They got to spend an hour just dedicated to this one concept of Dr. Manhattan has to meet Angela because he loves her. He doesn't know when it started, but he is in love with her. And because of that, we as an audience get to go on this journey with him that spans over multiple decades. And because of that, it is really, really hard to discuss as a reviewer. Like, it is incredibly difficult. Like, I've tried to explain, like I probably recorded this like 4 times trying to properly explain this part about like just how incredible it is that they were able to capture Dr. Manhattan's love. And that's a really difficult thing. And what really makes it all worth it is that you see him say the words, you know, I love you, you know, that he is invested in this relationship that already is happening, already has happened. He is locked into this relationship and he already loves her, but he just can't pinpoint the singular moment why. and realizing that this entire episode was building up to that moment when we're in present day. Angela's grabbing the guns like a boss out of the safe and getting ready, and he realizes, oh wait, this is the moment. And then she's like, what? And he's like, this is the moment I realized I love you. And she's like, is that supposed to be romantic? Because it's yeah, you know, it's not. This is very serious. And I love her reaction to that it's not to stop and go to like, oh, this is such a mushy moment. Like, no, your life is in danger, Cal. I'm trying to save you. Shut up. Let's get this done. Let's kill these people outside. And it works in that regard. It really does work in that regard. And it's so emotionally powerful because earlier in the episode, he talks about when Angela remembers, like, she says, you know, what's the moment you realize you love me? And he's like, moment, there's no moment, it's just now. And it takes him being in this stupor of having been awoken again and having his powers restored and all that jazz, and he's confused by his perception of time, that in his confusion, he's able to realize, oh, I'm not connected fully right now to the past, the present, all that jazz. I'm in this moment and I'm realizing, wow, this woman is willing to keep fighting to save my life, even though it's inevitable that I die or that I get captured or what have you. And I think that's what makes it very, very interesting and very, very powerful to see this, you know, for all interpretations, you see this God reduced down to these mortal emotions, and it's just like, oh, that's where it comes from. And then it all comes full circle. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about this episode is how they play into, since he perceives everything all at once, how information affects one another at all times. And that's where you end up getting this grandfather paradox of Angela is standing by the pool and she's like, are you talking to my grandfather right now? And he's like, yes, I am in the past 10 years ago. And and then she's like, okay, can you tell them why, you know, ask him, why did he kill Judd Crawford? How do you know he was a part of Cyclops? And, you know, how do you know that there was a Klan hood in the closet? And then he asks, and then he's like, who's Judd Crawford? You know? And so you have this moment where you have the chicken, like he says, is this the chicken or the egg? Which came first? Was this Angela's fault, or was this already in place to already gonna happen? Or are we in this loop of events that have ended up happening? Pretty bold choice to go for a grandfather paradox, because it's not the not the safest choice storytelling wise to do a time loop in any sort of fashion, because it takes a lot of explainers and it takes a lot of very a lot of liberties in logic and a lot of possibilities in order to stick with it. Regardless, I still think that moment really worked, and it was really powerful, and it makes sense that it would happen because Dr. Manhattan in that point in time is in this sort of stupor. Like I said, he's confused coming out of it, so he's like, I can't quite tell what's going on right now. I just came out of a point in time where it was like years of my life that I couldn't see what's happening, so I don't know what's up. So I thought it was very interesting in that regard, and I think they pulled it off very well. Overall, I think everything they did with this episode was absolutely fantastic. From the perception of time to the reveals that we get about Dr. Manhattan going to Europa and creating life, and how the servants that we have are actually representations of the people who took him and his father in once they fled from Germany, and how all that came together and was one big, you know, it's just one big circle. It's one big circle of events. It's hard to discuss it all in like a linear fashion because everything ties into one another, and you need to bring up other points to bring up, you know, to make everything connect. But I think that moment works really well, and it makes those interactions even more poignant when you realize Adrian's been slaughtering them in droves, and these are people that mean a lot to him, in a mansion that means a lot to him. And to see Adrian, to see Voight, to see Ozymandias the Wise in this sad shell of a man in 2009, it's just so, like, it's so interesting. And Jeremy Irons just does such a great job, and he steals the show all the time. But when you see him and he's just making these squid voids and he's looking at the news and seeing that people and humanity is still making the same mistakes over and over again, trying to build weapons, trying to defend themselves, and in his mind he's saved humanity, and he's looking and he's like, what are you guys doing? Why are you guys still making the same mistakes? And he's just sad and he's just tired. He's just tired. And then you have Dr. Manhattan sending him away to this paradise of sorts. Whether or not it's a punishment or not, who knows? It's really, really interesting, and I am looking forward to seeing how they pay all this off and wrapping up this entire mystery, because I need to know what happened to Looking Glass. All right, he's my favorite character. Tim, is it Tim Blake? Is it Tim Blake Shelton Blake, Tim Blake, the guy who plays his Looking Glass? Regardless, you know who I'm talking about. That guy from those movies that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how this story ends up wrapping up. I think they have a really strong mystery setup, and I think they have something really special on their hands. So those are my overall thoughts on not only just episode 8, but the whole entire series thus far in general. Let's get excited about this season finale. Guys, let me know what you've thought about Watchmen, this whole entire season thus far, in the comment section down below, and let me know what you thought of episode 8 of Watchmen. Yes. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Daniel, and don't forget to get geeky.